Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday. It is week 6 in college football, building off a little bit of momentum that the previous host, Johnny Danger, and this man right here, Coach White, built upon the last couple weeks. I'm Chris Emrick with Coach White. Coach, how you doing?
Good, man. I appreciate you covering for Danger. We've been riding a hot hand in the lineups we've been building, so hopefully we can build one today to win us some money.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I've had a tough week in League of Legends. I just am zigging I'm zigging when the results are zagging, and then I zag and it zigs, and then I say, I'm not going to do this, and it's been terrible. Then we find out that one of the players has been leaking information so that people would send him nudes.
What? Yeah. Are you serious?
Yeah, so there was this scandal. It wasn't like match fixing. He wasn't throwing the games or point shaving, but there are certain sites where you can bet like props on like what champion's going to be picked. Yeah. And apparently he was leaking this information so that girls would send him nudes or semi-nudes or something like that. The news broke, and this was a team that I've lost a ton of money on, and primarily because this guy has been absolutely garbage. The worst player on his team by a long shot. So, hey, what we do, like guys, there's free sites. Like it's you don't need to do this. You just don't anyway. So wow. That's where I'm at. How's your Saturday? How's your week been?
Yeah, well, that's a much more interesting tagline for esports than I got for college football this week. I mean, that should be a headline, man. I haven't heard about that from anywhere. Nothing exciting like that going on in the college football world, but I mean, hopefully we can still make some money today.
I'd venture to guess some of these players are getting those same type of text messages, but not leaking or point shaving to get that. So, we've got an exciting week here. I want to build a couple lineups with you, but is there anywhere that we should start by looking at the slate before we get into the lineups? Are there any places to fade? Are there any places to target? What's just your overall thoughts on today's slate?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I do is I'm going to look for the games that are low scoring, going to be more defensive battles. I'm just going to cross them off. We have Penn State against Iowa, 2 top 5 teams now battling it out, but there's just no fantasy goodness. Even though it's a top 5 matchup, that might draw some eyes to it, but if you're watching football, you realize that these teams both play great defense and they run slow offenses. So that's one game right off the bat. Even though it's the late hammer, it's a 4:00 game, and every other game starts at 3:30 or before. So that's the only interesting part is you don't want some random person to go off in that game and you be sitting there okay, come on, I'm trying to cash. That's when you sweat, but I'm staying away from that. And even the game right before that, Wisconsin and Illinois, another cross-off game. 2 teams that just not interested in. They don't really have powerhouse run offenses. They don't have powerhouse pass offenses. Their defenses are okay. So that's just an ugly game. And even Georgia-Auburn, which, 2 big names. Once again, great defenses, just run-of-the-mill offenses. Those are the 3 games I'm crossing off, even though we got some big names in there. It's just not worth it. There's no fantasy relevance in those games.
Okay. All right. Is there 1 or 2 games that we're going to target, or should I just bring up the lineup and we should start there?
There are a few games that you can do game stacks, but the pricing is challenging this week. So I like to take bits and pieces from each game. This week, I've been stacking the past few weeks, but I'm going to find even a naked quarterback is interesting in a few different lineups this week. So let's just start building, man.
Okay, let's do it. Let me bring up the screen. That's not okay. There we go. Don't have the controls. We're going to go ahead and pull up the mid-season main event 50K to first. We've got 437. So this isn't a huge GPP here. This is a little bit of a smaller. So, a little bit different than I think some of the lineups that maybe Danger had been entering in regards to contest size. So I think we can go a little bit chalkier here in some regard, and it's not necessarily taking as many crazy shots. So I didn't tell you that ahead of time. So now I've told you, let's build a lineup. Where do I want to start? Where do I want to look first?
Yeah, so we have our top price quarterback is Matt Corral, who last week was priced at 9,200, got shut down by Alabama. He was the highest owned quarterback on the slate. Well, Alabama's a different breed. He's going against Arkansas this week, who's been playing pretty well, but they haven't faced a pass offense like Ole Miss yet. And Matt Corral is going to be probably the number one quarterback prospect coming out in the next couple of years. So I love Matt Corral, but at 10,000, I mean, that's taken quite a bit. You know, that's 15, 20% of our salary just taken off by that quarterback. So if we have a few stacking options, which we do, he's a great place to start. But me personally, I like the player right underneath him in Malik Cunningham. Virginia is throwing the ball 40 to 50 times a game. So they're just slowing the clock down. And Louisville, what they do is Cunningham is averaging 30-plus fantasy points a game. What he does is he runs touchdown in. He has 2 rushing touchdowns in every single game this season. So he's at 1, 2, 4, 6. He's at 10 rushing touchdowns already at quarterback. Not only is he doing that, Virginia is hemorrhaging passing yards. So if he has to throw the ball, last game he had 309 yards, 264. I mean, his floor is about 30 points, even in this matchup. So he is the safer option. So if we're putting anybody in, I would probably rock with Cunningham in that lineup you're about to make.
All right, we're going to go ahead and draft it. Now, do we want to move into the running back position to kind of complement here, or do we want to just jump right into wide receiver first?
Let's go to running back because I really want to pay up this week at running back. This is a week where we can find value at wide receiver. And our low options at running back, there's a few chances I'm willing to take, but not necessarily – it's not important for the lineup you're about to build. I think we can get good ownership leverage with these running backs if we pair them together, if we have 2 high-priced running backs and a high-priced quarterback to pair with them.
Okay,
so,
I'm down.
Let's go with Trayvion Henderson. He is Ohio State's running back, freshman. I'm telling you, this kid is going to be one of the best Ohio State running backs of all time. And we've had some good Ohio State running backs. So what I mean, this kid, last week, he had 8 rushes. That's all they gave him is because they believe that this kid is the future. So he had a 44-yard touchdown straight to the house on his first touch. And then they went up by 40 points in the first half, and they said, all right, yeah, 8 carries is enough. Let's sit him on the bench. But I think Maryland can keep this game somewhat close and keep Henderson running the ball. So last week, with only 8 touches, he had 13 points. I expect 16 to 20 touches in this game. And, I mean, he's got 3 touchdown upside in this matchup.
Okay, all right. And so we're looking at another high-priced running back to pair with him. Who are you thinking?
We're going to go back to the well and Letty Brown. He has not let us down yet for West Virginia, playing against Alabama. Letty Brown. Last time me and you actually made a lineup, his first touch was an 80-yard touchdown to the house.
I remember that. It started good, and then Naylor scored, and then that one guy just never caught a ball, despite the fact that he was open. Yes.
That was a bummer. And then next week he caught 2 over the top, had 2 touchdowns and 80 yards. You love when you see that happen.
Absolutely. So we're going Letty Brown here. Looks like he's had some up and down performances, but yeah, you figure this game against who are they playing? Baylor?
Baylor, yes.
Okay.
And Baylor was torched. Breece Hall, who's a really good running back for Iowa State. He's actually in the Heisman watch to start the year. He's had a slow start to the season, but he put up 50 points against Baylor 2 weeks ago. 3 touchdowns, nearly 200 yards. And then last week, they played Oklahoma State, and Warren, the running back from Oklahoma State, went over 102 touchdowns. So in the past 2 games, they've given up over 80 points to the running backs. And West Virginia's offense just runs through Letty Brown. So I love that play at 6,500. I think it's a great price.
All right, fantastic. So now, like you said, we've paid up in our first 3 slots. We need to get some wide receivers. I know that you said that you weren't as keen to stacking as much this week because of the way the slate looks, because our running I called him a running back because I was saying our quarterback is running in a lot of balls and not throwing them. So we're not getting that same type of ceiling correlation. Where are we looking at for a wide receiver? We do need to save some money.
Yeah, so there's a few different options here. One of my favorite plays on the slate for value, we're going to go to Ole Miss. So I talked about Matt Corral at 10,000. His wide receiver at 3,600, Jadon Jackson. He actually took over for Jonathan Mingo, who broke his foot prior to the Alabama game. Mingo was his third down option, the receiver that would move the chains. And I really think that hurt them last week. Playing against Bama, they didn't have the guy to move the ball on third down. And Jadon Jackson really didn't have time to prepare. That broken foot happened on Thursday. The game was on Saturday. He wasn't expecting to start. But now that they have a whole week with practice, he took over for Mingo. And at 3,600 in this offense, who's projecting 35 points, I think it's a smash spot at 3,600.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, would you consider Drummond? I mean, and I don't know a thing about this, but it looks like Drummond and Mingo are the two top priced guys. You would think that some of the catches that Mingo was also getting then go to Drummond as well. Is that safe to say? Is he a good play, or do you feel most of that work goes to Jackson and some of the other receivers, and Drummond's role stays pretty similar to what it was?
Yeah, so Drummond's, he should see a little bit of an increase in targets. But he does all of his he gets all of his points through yak. I mean, he catches slip screens and takes them to the house. He'll run a little, when the quarterback, little shovel pass in front on the goal line, 5-yard touchdown. He almost runs like a Devontae Adams type offense, okay, but not as many targets as Devontae Adams would get. So I think with us paying up at running back, it's going to be really hard to pay up for Drummond here. That's why I think we get a similar player in Jackson at almost a $4,000 discount.
Makes a ton of sense. Okay, so where are we going next? That saved us a little bit of money, but we're still not to the 6K average. What other type of value wide receivers can we look at?
Yeah, so we're going to go back to that Ohio State game. They're playing against Maryland, and we have another wide receiver going to be thrusted into a role after an injury. So Dante Demas Jr. had a nasty knee injury last week. Maryland was playing against Iowa. Happened in the second quarter. Poor guy. I mean, got blasted in the open field, and his season ended. And he was averaging over 20 points a game. But somebody has to fill in now, and that's going to be Garrett at 4,100 for Maryland. So we got Raheem Jarrett, and he has 4 touchdowns, over 20 receptions. He was the number 2 in that offense. And I feel like they're going to have to run a ton of bubble screens. He's going to get a bunch of receptions, chance for 1, maybe even 2 touchdowns. Somebody has to step up in that Maryland offense. And he's averaging 15 points a game already. Now he's the number 1. So I feel like he can improve upon that. And if we get 16 to 20 points at 4,000, I'm happy with that.
So you're thinking that Maryland is able to score on Ohio State. It looked like their defense has shut down the last 2 opponents that they've had after, giving up quite a few points in their first 2 games, albeit what looked like better competition.
I see it being about 42 to 21, but I think one of those touchdowns will be Jarrett, and at 4,100, that's worth it.
Fair enough. All right, well, we're over 6,000 now. We're moving in the right direction. We've gotten quite a bit of value now on our roster. I think we can look to either further go into the value, or maybe we can get somebody that's a little bit more expensive. I mean, what are you thinking here? What's my next move?
Let me see. What do we have for salary? Say it one more time, Chris.
We are at 6,200.
6,200. Okay.
We've got our wide receiver flex and super flex. So certainly we don't necessarily need to spend that 6,200 quite yet, because I have a feeling we're going to want some of that for the super flex, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we could find a way to pay up at quarterback for that super flex position, but there's some really good options in this 6,000 range. So I like Billy Kemp, the 4th for Virginia. So he's going to be playing on the opposite side of Louisville, our quarterback. And I expect Louisville to be up most of the game. And Virginia, like I said, they're throwing the ball 40 to – I think he's had a 56 attempt game before. Brennan Armstrong is just – he's constantly throwing. And Billy Kemp is a slot receiver. Last week, Louisville was gashed by Jakari Roberson. Wake Forest is a slot receiver. And Billy Kemp averages 8, 7, 9, 6 receptions in his last 4 games. So he's seeing – upwards of 10 to 12 targets every single game in this offense. 6,500, I think if he can actually put one in the end zone, 25 to 30 points is realistic for him this week.
Okay, fantastic. Well, now we're right at 6,000. Okay. We've got our flex. We've got our super flex. Lead me to the promised land here.
Ooh, let's see. Flex and super flex, 6,000 remaining. All right. A.T. Perry. I love him for Wake Forest this week. They're playing against Syracuse. Syracuse has been very average. I mean, they're okay against the run. They're okay against the pass, but they really haven't played anybody. And this Wake Forest team, this offense is not to be trifled with. Right now, they're running 70 to 80 plays a game. They're throwing the ball 30 to 35 times a game, and they have 3 wide receivers that stand out. It's Roberson, Perry, and Morin. A.T. Perry is a splash player. What I see happening in this game is him catching that 40-yard touchdown over the top and then having 5 or 6 total receptions for 80 yards, 1 to 2 touchdowns. And at 5,400, I think that's an awesome price for A.T. Perry this week.
Okay. All right. So that leaves us with 6,700. One guy that I didn't hear you mention that I had thought about as I scrolled through here, he was a wide receiver. He did some good things for us. What about Mr. Naylor over in Michigan State's offense?
Yeah, so that offense runs through Kenneth Walker, their running back. And right now, I mean, I think Rutgers is going to be reeling after getting destroyed by Ohio State last week. So Naylor had a good week last week against, I think it was Western Kentucky, but that was a shootout. And Rutgers just doesn't put enough points for Michigan State to continue throwing the ball. And Naylor's the number 2 in that offense. Reed's going to be their number 1 at 7,400. So if I was playing Michigan State players, it would be Kenneth Walker and it would be Jalen Reed. I'm going to stay away from Naylor this week.
All right. Well, we are at 6,700. So what do you got for me?
67. And that's our super flex. Is that correct?
That is our super flex.
Super flex is 67. All right. Ooh, this is a weird one. So we're kind of in between. I love Garrett Wilson at 6,800. We can't get to him for Ohio State. I would love to bring him back. We've used Billy Kemp already. We've used Letty Brown. So we've used a lot of my favorite players in this range. An interesting play, if we wanted to play a quarterback, would be Syracuse's Garrett Schrader at 6,700. And he's a running quarterback as well. But the only thing that scares me is he's playing against Wake, and they've just been solid on defense. But they were gashed by Malik Cunningham last week on the ground, and Garrett Schrader is a running quarterback. So he's interesting for the fact that at 6,700, you're getting a quarterback that I believe will give you 15 points minimum, but he has 35-point upside in this game. So if you're willing to take a chance, Garrett Schrader at 6,700 is very interesting. If not,
I mean, the other two that I'm looking at here right at that 67, and maybe you're going to mention one of them, but you've got Goodson. And I know, look, you said that this Iowa Penn State game is probably one that you kind of cross off, or Bowers for Georgia Auburn, which I understand is probably one of the premier games on this slate. It appears, though, they have similar ceilings to Schrader, but they have very real floors. Did you have somebody else that you were going to bring up?
Yeah, so Bowers is actually a freshman tight end for Georgia. He's been a lot of fun to watch. He's somebody to keep an eye on for the NFL. Freshman's putting up, I mean, he's their number 1 target in a number 2 ranked offense, or not number 2 ranked team, not offense. But Traylon Burks for Arkansas, since we like the Ole Miss game, he's the bring back spot. He's the number 1 wide receiver for that Arkansas team. He's extremely interesting, but he is completely boom or bust. He's the type that needs to catch the 60-yard slip screen or get over the top to hit value, because they just don't pass enough in that offense. And I believe that Arkansas is going to try to slow this Ole Miss offense down and run. Let's see. Stephon Cobbs for Boise State is extremely interesting. Last week, he finally broke out after getting healthy for 10 receptions, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Since we can't afford Khalil Shakir at 7,100, Cobbs is a clear number 2 in that offense, and they will be playing from behind. He could see another 8 to 12 targets in this game. He's the number 2. Shaquille is going to be probably blanketed by one of Brigham Young's top cornerbacks. I think that could open up room for Cobbs. And Cobbs also returns kicks and punts, and he has 1 kick return already on the season. So he plays a big role. He is their premier football player on that team outside of Khalil Shakir.
Well, let me ask you about a couple other guys here. I know that we've got Letty Brown from West Virginia playing Baylor. Can we run any of these guys coming back from Baylor? Can we go all the way down and sacrifice 600 in salary and go down to Bohannon, who looks like he has a pretty decent ceiling and a pretty safe floor? How do you feel on that side of things?
West Virginia has been very good on defense, and they control the clock so well. That's why I like Letty Brown, is because they slow fast-paced teams down. Even Oklahoma, I mean, they held Spencer Rattler to a very ho-hum game, that they kind of kept Oklahoma from running their normal 80 points or 80 plays a game. They kept them to about 65 plays. I don't like playing against West Virginia. They seem to be strong in matchups where they're better than the teams they're playing, and they are better than Baylor, plain and simple. They're just a better football team.
Well, with everything that we've talked about, the guy that I am leaning towards, and I'm going to make this decision here. We're going to go with Schrader.
All right.
We're going to go with Schrader. I mean, a good name from Breaking Bad. We've got Schrader there. Now, before we do that, let's talk about something. We put together a lineup here. Hopefully, it's a $50,000 winning lineup. Yeah. I will send you a little bit of that if that is the case.
Yeah.
But one of the ones here that seems like it has a ton of volatility is Henderson. If somebody doesn't want to stomach the volatility, because like you said, he has all this potential, but what if Ohio State gets out in front and he gets only 8 carries again? Who's another guy that you could pivot off of Henderson, and then maybe you could go up to that 6,800. So, can we look at whether, and I don't know the viability of these guys, but a Sean Tucker, Tyon Evans, I believe that was a guy you were super high on at the beginning of the year when nobody else was. Chase Brown, Godson, any of these guys, can we plug him in there?
Yes, I love Tyon Evans actually. So 6,900, great price. Last week, he ran a 92-yarder to the house. He had 3 touchdowns. Last week, I was playing Jabari Small. He was at 4,400, the value for Tennessee. He had 4 rushes for 44 yards and got hurt with a shoulder injury. And Evans came in and said, all right, it's my backfield now. I'm taking over. And that's exactly what he did. He just went off. He actually had a 4th touchdown that they didn't review, and it got taken away from him, and it went to Hendon Hooker, which helped me out because I had Hendon Hooker in my FanDuel lineup and took that one down because of Hendon Hooker. But Evans he's a great play, man. I love him at 6,900. So if we put him in instead of Henderson, because to your point, that absolutely could happen. Henderson could easily get 12 rushes and only go for 40 yards and 1 touchdown. We're like, all right, crap. Now we just spent 7,500 for 10 points. When we know Tyon Evans is going to run the ball at least 15 times. Right now, Tennessee's offense is the fastest offense in the FBS. A lot of people don't realize that we changed coaches over the offseason from our old coach to Hoople from UCF. And UCF, if you've ever watched college football, they're always a fast-paced team. So now we're at 88 to 90 plays a game. I love that this week.
So if we do that, now we have 7,300 to go ahead and take that super flex, which puts us all the way up into a ceiling where we can get guys like Dotson, but we've crossed him out. Milton's not playing. I made that mistake like in week 1 because I don't know anything about this. You got Sean Tucker, but obviously you told me that Wake Forest is pretty good, right, in terms of defensively. So, but do we? I mean, he appears to have the highest ceiling. Of course, we can also go all the way down to the guy that you were mentioning earlier in, I think, Garrett Wilson.
Yes. So what exactly do we have left, Chris?
We have 7,300.
73. Okay. So with 7,300, let's see. You know what? I like Khalil Shakir. So I mentioned Cobbs, but if we have the money for it, Khalil Shakir is the premier option in that Boise State offense. And he has 2 to 3 touchdown upside, especially if they're playing from behind. And BYU just gave up 9 receptions, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns to Utah State slot receiver. That's what Shaquille is. He's their slot receiver. So unless they blanket him and they move like one of their best corners to the inside, which BYU normally doesn't do, Shakir should eat at 7,100 today.
All right. I mean, I think I'm pretty sold there. I got one question for you before we lock that in. Yeah. Actually, it's going to be 2 questions. How do we feel about going with Kemp, and then also putting Wicks in there? He looks like he's high volume but boom or bust. But the other guy that I'm looking at is the quarterback for Shakir, Hank Bachmeier.
Bachmeier, yeah. So Bachmeier is very average. He's going to give you about 20 to 24 points a game. If he has a really good game where he's on, you might get 28 points. Shakir has 35-point upside, even though he's his wide receiver. he has 10 reception, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns written all over him this week. Dontavius Wicks is the big play guy for West Virginia. So we went with the slot receiver, more of the possession guy in Billy Kemp. Mm-hmm. I just believe with Ja'Cory Roberson from Wake handling Louisville's corner, I know that Virginia's going to attack them there. And right now, Virginia has 3 or 4 options to spread the ball around. Keontae Thompson at 4,600. And Jelani Woods went out, their tight end, with an injury. So if you're looking for the big play, Wicks is the guy. He's going to be the one to score 2 to 3 touchdowns. Billy Kemp will be the guy to get you 10 receptions and 1 touchdown. So you can take that however you want, but me personally, it's Kemp this week. I just think he has easily the safest floor.
Yeah, and I don't think we can play Wicks and Kemp without having their quarterback involved in there. It's just too much correlation that we're missing out on. So, I mean, that's a thought that you could kind of put together, but we would have to make some significant changes to our team to do that. So, are we going to go with the Shakir Evans, or are we going to go with the Schroeder? What was it? Schroeder Henderson. Now, keep in mind, this is only a 437 person contest. It's not a huge contest. It's not a tiny contest. The one that we're going to do next is going to have even less people, and we can certainly, transfer over to FanDuel and play some of these plays there if we don't like what we have here.
I like the Evans Shakir. I think it's a great little correlation there. I don't think you can go wrong with either because I like both those plays, but the way that lineup's looking, it's got a good mix of upside and safety, and that's really what we're looking for in this type of contest.
All right, we can go with that, but one thought before we do that, because we just, I got to tinker a little bit here. I kind of liked this. Where was it? Hang on. It's tough when you don't know who the guys are. We go Schrader. So look, we also have this, and I don't think that this really gives us enough. I was curious, but if we went with Schrader there instead of Shakir, now we have 600. One of the places here that we went extreme savings was Jackson at Mississippi. Again, really, really low floor, but obviously some major potential with a role change. I mean, is there a guy that we can go to at 4,200 as an upgrade? I mean, I'm not seeing a lot, so maybe there isn't.
No, there really isn't this week. The only person, and it doesn't correlate well. The other guy would be 4,700, and it would be Louisville's running back Mitchell, but that wouldn't correlate with Cunningham. That would be taking away touchdowns from our quarterback. So we don't want to do that. That makes no sense.
Okay. All right. I just had to do that. Here we go. We are entered in there. So let's get over to I know I didn't really prepare you for this, but let's go over to FanDuel.
Okay.
I reserved a lineup over here, and let's pull this open. We've got college football. We've got the monster. This is let me make my screen bigger for everybody. Yeah, there we go. This might be a little bit too big. We're a little out of control here.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that works.
All right, so this contest is a little bit different. I think this is only like 130 people. Let me take a quick look back at it. So we've got this contest as 75 people. So this is a much, much smaller one. I will tell you, in these high stakes, smaller contests, people do center around the chalk. So you don't have to be super contrarian like you might in other ones. You don't have to look for like that Atlanta Falcons, Washington football kind of off the beaten path game, but you do probably want to be 1 or 2 deviations off of the chalk. And that's really all you have to be. We do have Malik Cunningham. We could try and do it all. We could just go all in on Malik Cunningham, but that's probably not where I'm feeling, unless you tell me that is absolutely the way to go.
No, I actually on FanDuel, I'm finding myself moving towards. I love Sam Howell against Florida State, North Carolina's quarterback. He was right up there at 11,200. He was 300 cheaper than Cunningham. He's not an option on DraftKings this week, and he probably would be my favorite quarterback if he was on DraftKings. So the fact that he's on FanDuel, he's got the rushing and passing upside. And his wide receiver, he's really just got one, and it's Josh Downs. He's super expensive at $10,000 on FanDuel. but man, he's a stud.
And I don't know if you noticed this, but like I didn't plan this obviously, but I'm like wearing a matching baby blue outfit here. So like maybe that was meant to be, like maybe that was the whole point. So I'm down for Downs and Howell. And Howell is kind of a ode to your other co-host, Johnny Danger, who lives in Howell or close to Howell. Like it's Howell. So this was meant to be.
And if we're going on narrative, we played Tyon Evans. We pivoted off him, and I'm rocking that Tennessee Volunteers shirt. So I mean, it's all coming together, man.
But let me ask you before we go into wide receiver, running back, can we go to the super flex, and can we then go way down here? Can we find my guy? Can we play Schrader?
That game might not be on the slate.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So there is somebody low, though, that I believe is going to be under-owned at that quarterback position, and it's Max Johnson for LSU. He is at 8,700. You can play him in Superflex. And right now, that Kentucky team's good. I mean, they're 5-0. They just beat Florida. But what I think they're doing is they're getting a little bit lucky with their turnovers. They've gotten 5 or 6 turnovers. And last week against Florida, 2 of them were tip balls. Florida had running back fumbled. They are not better than Florida. And right now, I think that Max Johnson is an awesome play at 8,700. He's averaging over 20 points on FanDuel. And right now, if you go and look at like the wide receivers or running backs around that range, yeah, I mean, they're okay. We've got some decent options in the 8,700 range. But for the floor that Max Johnson gives you, I mean, I think it's an awesome play for our super flex.
All right, fantastic. So let's do this a little different. So we already are. We're building from quarterback. We're stacking them. We're grabbing another quarterback. Let's just say, you know what? Unless you tell me that the running back's a more important position, because I know college football is a little different. Can we go to the wide receivers, or is that a mistake? Should we look at the running backs first?
It's running backs, especially on FanDuel with it being half point.
Sure. Okay.
And touchdowns, I mean, in college, they don't mess around on the goal line. They're not throwing, sneaky little tight end passes on the one. They're punching the ball in. Like it's old school football in college. That's what I like about it. It's just, once your stud running back gets on the one, he's punching it in. So that makes, let's see, do we have Brian Robinson Jr. for Alabama on the slate? I believe we do. 8,800. Go down there.
Yep, there he is.
So last week, I mean, he was the man. Absolutely smashed for me. He was the GPP play. I got him at 4%, and people were all over the passing options there. And they didn't realize that the year before, Najee Harris ran 5 touchdowns on Ole Miss. Just go back and read Alabama's game script from previous years, and you realize that Robinson was the play. This week, I think it's the same thing. I think they're going to try to slow the game down. McClellan, their backup running back, just got injured, so Robinson's going to see even more touches. I love Robinson at 8,800. You can lock him in.
All right, we're at 7,100. We've got 3 slots to fill, so we're going to need some value, whether it be at this running back or wide receiver position. Let's fill this up so we can kind of put together this final lineup and then go into, put together like a parlay or so.
All right. You want to go back to Notre Dame's wide receiver with me this week?
Let's do it.
Kevin Austin, I believe he's exactly at 7,100. They're playing against Virginia Tech in Virginia Tech, so it's going to be a close game. Notre Dame's going to have to throw the ball. Kevin Austin can beat a Virginia Tech cornerback, but can he get hit after he beats them? That's the question. So I love him because he has the touchdown upside for Notre Dame. He's going to maybe catch 5 balls, but it could easily be for 2 to 3 touchdowns. So at 7,100, I think it's an awesome value for Kevin Austin this week.
All right, love it. So we're at 7,100 still. I'm assuming that if we're going to running back, I mean, we're going to want to, pay up for some of these guys. Are we going to go find some like deep value in the wide receiver position? Are we going to go down to, oh man, we've got to go way down probably to even get to like a Tyon Evans at 8,100. Is there somebody that you see? Trey Turner is apparently not just playing baseball, but he's on the other side of the ball here too.
Yeah. And he actually had a really good game last week. It's not going to show up on there. I think it was an FCS team. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, No, but we can go back to Jackson. He's way down there. The player we had for Ole Miss.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see what that brings us. Jackson.
I mean, he was cheap. I'm telling you, like, he's too cheap. He's taken over for Mingo and an offense that just runs a ton of plays.
Okay, so that gives us a couple options we can go to, and I have no opinion on these guys. I just know Tyon Evans is good. We've got Corbin, Chandler, and Williams. Probably don't want to go Chandler. Obviously, already got that UNC kind of passing attack. Don't want to poach touchdowns from ourselves necessarily, unless you tell me I'm wrong. And then we also have Hassan Haskins down there at 7,800. So these are kind of the options we have. Maybe even a little Goodson. I don't know. I keep saying them. You told me not to, but I do.
Okay, so when it comes to tournaments like this, you're looking for, and maybe you believe the same. So when we're stacking, like UNC, if we played Chandler, yeah, you would think he would be stealing touchdowns away. But this offense runs through 3 players and 3 players alone. It is Chandler, it is Howell, and it is Downs. So let's say Downs only catches 1. All right, well, that probably means Chandler's running in 2. And it's just, we're kind of cutting our losses in half. There's certain players, like maybe you have a wide receiver at 7,000 you love, but there's the secondary wide receiver at 4,500. You play both because you're cutting your losses in half. Do you believe in that type of stacking, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, especially a 75-person tournament, basically what you're kind of telling me here is let's do this. Let's bank on the fact that UNC can win, and they can win big, and they score a lot of points. And if they do, we win, basically. And I'm all for that. If there's a specific, realistic win condition and I can take it, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And if you didn't feel comfortable with that, obviously you have Evans right under that. We like him for touchdown upside. But I think it's interesting playing those 3. It's going to be automatically different because people are going to think, why would I play a running back with the quarterback? Well, it's because the offense runs through 3 players, and North Carolina scores 45 points a game.
Okay, well then that's it. We've got it. Perfect. We've got this lineup here. I'm going to throw this in. I will let you know how all of that goes. Let's go over to finish this up. Let's go over to the sports book. Let's take a look. We're going to look for, a single game bet, a dual game bet, maybe. And actually, we've had some comments here. I completely had it covered. So let's just run through these here. Yeah, have fun. I want to have fun. You be safe too. You have a good Saturday as well. We've got a high 5 here. Some of these, I'm sure people we got this. There we go. There we go. Howell for the win. And he's Downs with Howell. Wow. That is
Johnny Danger comment.
Yeah. Wow. Sometimes I have to tell him before the show is like, look, don't go off the rails. And then he just immediately I did that. I was like, look, we need to not go off the rails this week. This is what we need to do. This is the schedule. And what is the very first thing he does? He brings up a game that's not even on the slate. I don't want to talk about this, man. Like this is going off the rails. But okay. So is there do you have anywhere from 1 to 4 bets that you're feeling really good about, or lines or totals or any of those? If you don't, it's okay. But
I like Wake Forest at -5.5 against Syracuse. I don't know.
Okay, hang on. I've got a 4-team parlay boost. So now you have to have 4 teams. I don't care what you say.
Well, I have 4 teams written down, so that's
okay.
Man, it was meant to be again. Things
are okay. Right. Wake Forest. We said Wake Forest -5.5.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. We're gonna take Notre Dame at +1 in Virginia Tech.
Is that down? Is that up?
It should be that night game. I think it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock game. It'll be deep.
Oh man, I should probably just use the search function.
I think I see it. Maybe not.
Hang on.
Should be by that LSU. Yeah, you just went past it. Oh, you're almost there. Where am I missing it too?
There. No, wait.
Can you search by game, I guess?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
I hope they still have them at +1. I hope they didn't take it down.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know where the search function is here.
Let's go to our 2 next games and then.
Okay, yeah, we'll try and find it.
Put that in. All right, Michigan -2.5.
There's Michigan. I saw Michigan, so I know that's on there.
They're for sure there.
My God, this is not a user-friendly. What time was the Michigan? There it is. Michigan 2.5. There we go. What about North Carolina? Are we looking at North Carolina? We've got a lot on them.
Yes. So my brother is a Florida State fan. Last night he was asking me for a few bets. And I was like, hey, man, no, you're not going to like it. But I think North Carolina smashes Florida State. He's like, I'm never betting against my team. Fair enough. But they were at plus 17, and I thought it was very realistic for them to hit that. But they were not one of my 4. I actually had Ole Miss at minus 4.5 beating Arkansas.
And that was earlier in the day, right?
Yeah. That should be a noon game. But they get back on track this week. Alabama's just a good team, and they just shut them down and made them look like they didn't belong. But Ole Miss belongs.
Okay, we've got Ole Miss.
All
now
right.
we need to find this Notre Dame game, which I don't think is on. I don't think it's on here. So we've got we can run through this. We got Nevada, New Mexico, UCLA, Arizona, Tulsa, Memphis, Utah.
What's the LSU number on there against Kentucky? That always interesting.
Plus 2.5.
Oh, dang it! If it was like plus 4, I'd love it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see the Notre Dame game on here. I don't know if there's another function. I don't.
All right. Well, what is Tennessee on there against South Carolina at minus 10? Is that what it should be at?
Minus 11 for Tennessee.
Moved. Dang it. Because I think they win by about 10. So, oh man. All right. Let's go to that North Carolina game. I really do think they beat Florida State, and if it's at plus 17 still, I'd hop on that.
It's 17.5. So
let's do it. Let's do it. I think North Carolina can beat them by 20 plus.
All right. So here's what I like to do on this. Let's throw, 50 on each one of these to cover the other 2. Then let's throw 50 on this. Let's do I need the odds boost on this. So hang on one second. We're gonna not do this. We're gonna bet those 4 games. Then we're going to keep the picks in the bet slip. We're going to go with the parlay. We're going to do this. And how do I get the odds boost? I feel like I've done this before. Maybe that is the odds boost. But all right, cool. We've got it. All right, fantastic.
All right, man. I appreciate you hopping on with me today. There's no late-breaking injury news that I know of right now. But if you guys have questions, hop on Discord at drroto.com. Any questions you have leading up to lock, I'm here for you. Even 4 o'clock games, evening games, I'll be around all day to answer questions.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's sweat this out. Hopefully we can win the 50, we can win the 10, we can win those bets, and it can be a super profitable day. But for Coach White, I'm Emrick. Thank you so much. And have a great day. We'll see you here next week. Whether it's me, whether it's Danger, Coach White will be here.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the